Hello and welcome back to AR77. I'm going to be honest with you, I can't believe I haven't made this video before today, but there you go, two iconic guns, two iconic pistols on the table for us today. On the left we have the 92, this is the FS by Beretta, but we're going to look at the 92 in a couple of different variations. And on the right, of course, that classic John Moses Browning design, the 1911. So it's because of that, in a way, that it's a tricky comparison to make, because on the one hand we've got one specific model or variations on a theme there made by one manufacturer, made by Beretta, and then on the other hand we've got the 1911 platform, if you will, which is manufactured and has been manufactured by dozens of different outfits, dozens of different organizations throughout the years. So as far as possible, I'm going to try and stick to kind of objective comparisons. So to kick this off, I'm going to do a bit of an information dump, a little bit of history around both of these guns in their kind of real steel counterparts. And then we'll look at actually what difference, if any of that makes to an airgun collector or a replica collector, because some of the things will have no relevance whatsoever, but you might be interested in the information. And some of the things, some of the more physical aspects of these guns, you might go, actually, that's something that I want to consider if I were to go and buy one or more of these lovely replica air guns. All the air guns we're going to feature today are CO2 powered replicas. They are either 4.5mm BB shooters or they are .177 caliber pellet shooters. And in fact, I think it's only the 92 FS that I've got here in the nickel that is the pellet shooter today. All the others are 4.5mm BB shooters. Okay, so let's get into this. We'll go kind of side by side. So if we look at the 1911, this was obviously adopted by the US military in 1911. Let's just do that. Let's get the ball rolling. Adopted by the US military in 1911 and served in countless conflicts. And do you know what? Still does around the world to this day. This is quite a modern representation, I suppose. This is the Remington 1911 RAC TAC. It's a lovely black kind of finish to it. Lovely white dot sights. There's so much to talk about today. I don't know where to start. So we've got that as the main kind of comparison to my other gun that I'm going to use as the main comparison. This Beretta 92A1 by Umarex. Again, a nice black, pretty solid standard gun. Lots in common in the way that it functions with the Remington there. Both lovely guns. They're on the wrong sides, aren't they? I should have them like that. But we'll keep coming back to these guns and the other four on the table as we go through the video. So let's take those out of the way. The 1911, yes, was adopted by the US military and was in service up until 1985, when the Beretta kind of took over. The Beretta model M9 was the kind of the military designation, the FS here being the kind of the civilian version, and it superseded the 1911 in no small part due to the fact that the ammo capacity was different. Traditionally the 1911 would hold 7 rounds in the magazine, and the M9 would carry 15 rounds. So obviously there's a significant difference there. Also, I've heard that the US military believed at that point in time that there may be further conflict in Europe that they were going to be potentially involved in. So they thought the 9mm platform was going to be slightly better because there was going to be a greater availability of ammo. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It's just something that I'd seen on I don't know if it was another video or if I read it somewhere or what. Okay, so let's look at the actual physical pistols themselves. As you can see with the 1911, you've got quite a slim shape. I think they call it all slab sides. It's really flat down the sides. They're nice and slim, nice and narrow, easy to carry shape there. Whereas if you look at that Beretta, that 92 FS there, that's a big old chunky gun there, big, heavy, chunky gun, and being Italian and there being all that sort of design to it, it's got curves, let's say. It's got curves, it's got a bit more detail to it, whereas the 1911 for the most part is a more simplistic affair. Obviously both of these guns that we're looking at today are kind of modern guns, although that is a pretty traditional sort of 92 FS style replica airgun. Obviously, once again, with the 1911, you've got this enclosed barrel. The barrel just sits inside like that, so you're not sort of seeing that barrel. On the 92A1, which is pretty standard, it's based on the 92 platform, but kind of brought a bit more up to date. You've got that exposed barrel there. You can see right to the actual barrel. Obviously, this being the air gun, the barrel is actually in there somewhere. You can see it kind of just recessed there, if I can get that camera to focus for you. But in terms of the real steel, the barrel is out there and is exposed, giving people all sorts of concerns around, well, is it going to be resilient when it comes to debris and dust and sand and things like that? And I believe people have had issues, and then other people have said, do you know what, it's not an issue at all. So there's a lot of kind of conflicting views out there. One of the biggest differences between the 1911 and the M9 or the 92 is the fact that the 1911, of course, as you've heard if you've seen any of my videos, or if you're probably aware yourselves, is a single action only gun. So if you rack the slide, you are in single action and you can pull the trigger. But if you haven't done that, or if you haven't cocked the hammer, you can't just shoot that pistol. That's a single action only gun. And I wonder whether that was a part also of the US military adopting the M9 way back when. This is a more modern M9A3, but I wonder if they preferred that method of being able to, pull straight from holster, and that first round being a double action round, after which, of course, the slide would reciprocate and your next shot would be single action after that point. Maybe that was something to do with the process as well, but yeah, a big distinction there, single action and double action. Of course, you could argue, well, a single action trigger pull is preferable. It's a lighter pull. It's nice and snappy like that, and a lot of people prefer that, myself included. I prefer that single action trigger pull. And yet actually, once you've pulled the trigger once on the M9 or the 92, I'll probably use those as interchangeable terms. Once you've pulled that trigger once and your slider's reciprocated and you're back to that single action, it's a really light trigger pull anyway. After that first round, of course, after that initial first round. Now again, in the real steel, the 1911 would have originally been chambered in 45 ACP, whereas the 92 was a 9mm pistol, as we said before. We talked about as well the difference that makes in terms of having 7 rounds in a magazine and then 15 rounds. I know that there's some variation there. I know that modern 1911s you can get 8-round mags, and I know that you can get extended mags and things like that, and the 2011 is a different kettle of fish. I know that you can get 17 or 18 round mags and different variations for the 92 also. I'm also aware that in certain areas on planet Earth there are restrictions which mean you cannot carry more than 10 rounds in a magazine. So I'm just kind of focusing on what the original kind of formation, what the original setup was. Another key difference, of course, is if we take our 1911 here, you can see that the apart from the grip safety there, we have a slide safety, and the slide safety in this case on the 1911 is based on the frame there. Okay, you'd need both of those safeties out of action for you to pull the trigger. But the slide safety exists on both guns, but on the 1911 it sits on that lower or the frame of the gun, whereas on the Beretta, you can see you also have that slide safety, but it sits actually on the slide itself. You don't have the grip safety, but what you do have is a working decocker as well. Now that's a bit of a bugbear for some people. They go, do you know, actually I prefer to have that safety right there where my thumb is. I don't want to have to reach up for that. Sometimes that's a struggle. And sometimes people would say, do you know what, that gets in the way, because when I'm racking the slide, when I rack that slide back, the safety's in the way and I'm knocking it off or knocking it on. I guess that's a fair point. Although what I would say is, as far as I'm aware, the intentional or the intended use of the 92 gun platform, I guess, is that, you know, double action first shot anyway. So you wouldn't necessarily be drawing, because I've got the mag in, so you wouldn't necessarily be drawing from holster and then racking the slide. You'd be drawing from holster, shooting in double action for your first shot, at which point the slide rocks back and you're into single action after that point. As I've said before, if you're carrying a 1911, you're more likely to carry that in a combat situation, kind of cocked and locked in condition 1, so that when you draw from holster, all you have to do is knock down that safety, make sure you're engaging the sort of the grip safety, and you are ready to dance. Okay, so while we're on safeties, I should point out that because these are kind of modern reproductions, you'll see that both of these have kind of ambidextrous safeties. I think at points in the past that hasn't been the case, certainly with the 1911, and possibly even with the 92, the Beretta 92. I'm not sure if it's always had an ambidextrous safety. Should have had a look at that before I made the video, I guess. But I'm sure one of you will be able to inform me as you have in the past. I really rely on that feedback, so it's great. Please do keep those comments coming. I really do appreciate it. Whether we agree with each other or not, I appreciate it. Okay, so some other similarities then, because they are quite similar in a lot of ways. For the 1911, you've got your mag release just right there on the sort of just in front of the grip behind the trigger. That's going to drop your mag out there like that. If we look at the 92, it's in the same place there as well. On this particular model, it doesn't quite work like that because there's a dropout magazine. As I've showed you before, I'll show you just again now. This is actually kind of a revolver, so this takes these sort of pellets in these kind of cylinders, and then you just move that forward and you're good to go. It doesn't have a dropout magazine. I've just got it on the table today to show you, well, so that I've kind of got a tan version or an earthy version of each, and a silver version of each, and a black version of each. I thought it was quite a nice aesthetic, as they say these days. But you can see the mag release is there on the handle just behind the kind of trigger again, although that hasn't always been the case. I believe initially the mag release on the 92 was kind of down here at the base of the grip on the earlier models until something like the 92 S1 or 92 SB. I think that might be the same gun, but just called different things to different people, or maybe it was redesignated. So as I said, the 92 A1 that I have here is quite a modern gun. It was meant to sort of build on the success of the 92 FS, the civilian version of the M9, and kind of bring it up to date with things like the kind of the rail, the integrated rail there on the front. They've kind of gone back to this swooping, smooth trigger guard, which I think from the ones that I've seen in the movies, that is the iconic shape for me of the trigger guard, with that kind of bladed front to it. And yet that is more of a traditional shape. It's not that this is new to Beretta. Older Berettas, the first 92s, kind of had that swooping shape. They didn't have that lip on it like the FS does there. So that's really nice. I quite like the way that this is very classic looking, but at the same time a very modern pistol, a very modern take on it. Really nice gun, full size metal dropout magazine there, and yeah, all singing, all dancing. Really lovely pistol. Incidentally, in case I forget to mention it, if you do have a 92A1 and you do have an M9A3, the mags are interchangeable between those two pistols. So that's worth bearing in mind. If you want one and you're thinking about getting the other, you have got a spare mag if you've got one of those models. And as modern takes on weapons, I guess this is the Remington, as I said, the 1911 RAC TAC, or tactical, but it's based, as I've said this 100 times, it's kind of based on the shape of the Kimber Warrior 2, I think it is. You can tell by this protruding rail there, the pattern on the grips there, the skeletonized trigger. A lot of the details on this gun take directly from the Kimber. But as modern kind of replicas, both of these guns obviously have rails. Both of them have white dot sights, front and rear. So as an airgun collector, these are really quite good for sight acquisition, really quite good pistols to own. Nice, standard, iconic black guns, or silver guns, or full dark earth, or coyote tan guns, I suppose. All the guns on the table today that you see are full metal. The only one that isn't blowback or field strippable is the Beretta 92FS there in nickel by Umarex. All the others are fully field strippable, all fully blowback, full size metal dropout magazines, and the frames themselves are metal also. There is a version of the M9A3 here which has I don't know if it was the first version they brought out, but it has a kind of a plastic frame to it and a metal slide, so the lower is all plastic. I prefer this one. This is the full metal version. I prefer it because I think, although I may be wrong of course, I think that the actual M9A3 always came in a full metal configuration. I don't think there was a plastic one with a metal slide, although again, happy to be wrong. Please do inform me. Okay, so that's the kind of the guns themselves out of the way. Let's look at the specifics of these as air guns. Now, obviously, the 92FS here stands out because it's the only pellet pistol on the table. It is I would say, a high-end replica pellet pistol made in Germany by Umarex. Although it doesn't function in exactly the same way as the real steel, it's a very accurate, very solid, nice and chunky gun. You can see there, it's a beautiful, beautiful gun finished in that lovely nickel finish, and it's got all the kind of the right shapings and things like that of the classic 92FS by Beretta. It's a really lovely gun, but that stands out as slightly different on the table today. In terms of cost, that's probably at the higher end. If you're looking at a real 1911 versus a Beretta 92, you're probably going to be paying more for the 1911. I think part of that is heritage. I'm not sure why else. I think it's just the supply and demand, things like that. When we're in the world of air guns, the prices are a bit more comparable. What I'll do is I'll give you a comparison for these two guns, these two particular guns, the 92A1 and this Remington 1911, on one of the websites, one of the more reputable websites in the UK. The Remington comes in at around about £150, and the 92A1 comes in a bit more expensive, around the kind of £190. Having said that, this is a more modern replica, as in this model hasn't been out as a replica as long as this has. So there is that to bear in mind. Also, I would say, although that's the price on that particular website, you can get both of them for cheaper than that. I don't think I paid that for either of those two guns. Another consideration then, let's just move to these beauties. Single action, double action is still a consideration because, true to form, the 1911 replicas here, this is a KWC one, as is that actually, although it's a Swiss Arms kind of branded one. This is SIG branded. This is Remington branded, but it's still a KWC pistol. Sick of droning on about that, I bet, aren't you? You're sick of me banging on about KWC 1911s. Tough. But yeah, true to form, this is a single action only. You have to have the grip safety kind of depressed and your slide safety off if you want to pull the trigger. You cannot shoot that gun double action, and that's the same for the other 1911s on the table. Same as the M9A3 or the 92A1 in this case. Both of these pistols you can shoot single action or you can shoot double action. Now, does that? No, it's a shame. This one, the M9A3, doesn't have a working decocker like the 92A1, which makes this a little bit more of a realistic proposition, I would suggest. I'd be interested actually to see if the actual M9A3 has a working decocker. I think if you buy these in reality, you can switch the function on that slide safety anyway. You can decide whether it's a decocker or just a safety or whatever. Please let me know, my friends in the States, if you own one of these guns in its real steel kind of layout. Please do let me know, because I'm interested in it. Caliber difference is redundant. 45 ACP, versus 9mm is redundant. I mean, there's a difference in caliber between these two. In a way, this is .177 pellets. This is 4.5mm BBs, but between these two beauties, these both shoot 4.5mm BBs, as do the Remington and the 92A1. So caliber is no difference there, and the power source is identical across all these pistols. They're all CO2 powered, as I said at the start. So they're all going to shoot roughly the same kind of feet per second, or power, or meters per second, or whatever you want. They're all going to be around the kind of 300 feet per second to kind of 350 feet per second mark. You're not going to get much more power than that out of a blowback heavy metal replica airgun. Obviously, when we're talking about caliber and ammunition, capacity is redundant. Again, not on the pellet version, because that is an 8-round cylinder. But with these guns, you're going to get 18 BBs, despite what the box says in each of these. I think the box for that says something like 17, but you can comfortably get 18 in the mag. The same with the Beretta. So capacity, power, accuracy is all going to be much of a muchness across the BB guns on the table today. So let me just take this out of the way so it doesn't start to get too confusing. All of the guns that you have on the table today are all fully field strippable. Again, apart from this cheeky man. They're all fully field strippable. They all do blow back when you pull the trigger. They are all going to lock back in that final position, letting you know that you need to reload your ammo. So really good, fully working, heavyweight pistols, and the tolerances and the build quality, particularly on the 92A1, is phenomenal. I think it's one of the best guns, best fully functioning replica air guns that Umarex currently make. I can't stress that enough. I think that's a really, really beautiful gun. All of these guns on the table today are I would say, top end. They're all really great. The Swiss Arms is beautiful, and look at that. That's just a beautiful gun just to look at and play with. Again, exactly the same really as the Remington. It is the same model really. Everything is the same. You can see the serrations are the same on the slide. The trigger's the same. The grips are slightly different, but the hammer's identical. Let me just drop that hammer. You can see the hammers are identical. The safeties are identical. Everything about that, even the detail on the back of the grip safety, it's essentially just the same gun, same front slide serrations, just with a different set of branding and a different finish to it. So which do you go towards? Which is your favourite? You know, both of these guns, the 92 or the 92FS or the M9 and the 1911, you know, they all have rich history. They all share a great lineage across conflicts, across wars, and across less devastating things like, or I say less devastating, I'm not so sure these days, things like the media. You know, the 1911, you've seen that in computer games like Hitman series, Far Cry, Call of Duty, famously in movies like Face Off. I think Nicolas Cage carries a pair of kind of golden 1911s. Jules, the Samuel L. Jackson character in Pulp Fiction, carries a kind of a stainless 1911. The 92, you know, again, Far Cry, the Resident Evil series, the classic games like Max Payne made the 92 quite popular in the gaming kind of sphere. And once again, classic action films like Lethal Weapon, Terminator 2. I think actually in Terminator 2, I think it's Robert Patrick plays the kind of evil liquid metal T-1000, and he carries a Beretta. I think it's a 92FS when he's playing the kind of the cop. But that famous Hasta la Vista line from Arnie comes just before he lets rip with a 1911. Correct me once again if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty up on my film, so I think that's accurate. And of course, we can't talk about the 92 without talking about Die Hard, those classic Bruce Willis films where he famously carries a 92 FS. Beautiful guns, and I guess it comes down to which you prefer. Do you prefer the 1911? Do you prefer the 92? You know, do you prefer something that looks a bit more military, like the M9, A3? Do you prefer something like the Emperor Scorpion there? Would you like these sort of, these shiny, let me get that out of the way, these more shiny kind of blingy guns with the 92 FS there by Umarex, or that Swiss Arms tactical rail 1911? You can't go wrong really with either. Or do you like to keep it simple? You know, black is the new black, and you've got that lovely black 1911 there, classic from Remington, and the lovely classic 92A1 there from Umarex. You will not be disappointed with any of the pistols on the table today, but if you can, I would say you should have a variation of both these pistol platforms in your collection. If you're fortunate enough to have more than one replica airgun, and you like guns that have that gravitas, that have that rich history, that rich lineage, you owe it to yourself to have a 1911 and a 92 style pistol in your collection. Beautiful guns. Once again, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate you all sticking with the channel. It is slowly growing, and I'm hoping that we're going to get a nice community going of people sharing information, sharing facts, disagreeing with each other politely, agreeing with each other aggressively, and yeah, long may it continue. I'll hopefully keep making videos as long as I keep liking guns, and I can't see that interest ever really waning. So, like I say, thanks for watching. Please do take care of yourselves. Stay safe. All the very best. Bye.